The intersection of 5th and Madison was usually busy at 6 p.m., but today it was absolute chaos. A silver Mercedes had somehow jumped the curb, crashed through the sidewalk barrier, and was now smoking ominously against a streetlight pole. Traffic had stopped. People were pulling out phones, recording, calling 911, but no one was approaching the vehicle. 11-year-old Marcus Washington was walking home from the library when he heard the crash. He'd been taking the long route to avoid the group of older kids who'd stolen his backpack last week. His feet were bare, his shoes had fallen apart 2 months ago, and his mother couldn't afford new ones yet. The cold pavement hurt, but he was used to it. He reached the scene and saw what others seemed frozen by. Smoke was coming from under the hood, getting thicker. Inside the car, a man in an expensive suit was slumped over the steering wheel, not moving. The driver's side door was crumpled, impossible to open. The passenger side was against the pole. Marcus heard someone say, "The car's going to explode. Everyone get back." People started backing away, but the man inside hadn't moved. Marcus looked around. No one was doing anything. They were all just watching, recording, waiting for someone else to act. His mother's voice echoed in his head. When something's wrong and you can do something about it, you do it. That's what decent people do. Marcus ran forward. He picked up a piece of concrete rubble from the broken sidewalk barrier. It was heavy, awkward in his small hands. "Kid, get away from there!" someone yelled. Marcus ignored them. He swung the concrete at the back passenger window. Once, twice. On the third hit, the glass shattered. Smoke billowed out immediately, making Marcus cough. But he reached in, unlocked the door, and pulled it open. The man inside still wasn't moving. Marcus could see blood on his forehead. The smoke was getting worse, flames now visible under the hood. Marcus grabbed the man's arm and pulled. Nothing happened. The man was huge, probably twice Marcus's weight. The boy climbed halfway into the car, unbuckled the seatbelt, and tried again. This time the man's body shifted slightly. "Help!" Marcus shouted to the crowd. "I need help!" 2 men finally broke from their paralysis and ran over. Together, they pulled the unconscious man from the vehicle. They'd barely gotten him 20 feet away when the Mercedes's engine compartment erupted in flames. Within seconds, the entire car was engulfed. Marcus sat on the curb, breathing hard, his hands bleeding from the broken glass. His bare feet were cut from running over debris, but the man was alive. He could see the rise and fall of the man's chest. Sirens approached from multiple directions. A woman knelt beside Marcus. "Are you okay, honey?" That was incredibly brave. She noticed his bare feet, the worn clothes. "Where are your parents?" "My mom's at work. She works 2 jobs." Marcus's voice was shaky, the adrenaline starting to fade. Paramedics arrived, immediately attending to the unconscious man. One broke away to check on Marcus. "You the one who pulled him out?" "Yes, sir." "You're a hero, kid. This man would be dead without you." The paramedic cleaned Marcus's cuts, wrapped his hands and feet in temporary bandages. "We should take you to the hospital, get you checked properly." "I can't afford the hospital." "Don't worry about that. The man you saved, he can afford it." "Do you know who he is?" Marcus shook his head. The paramedic pointed to the stretcher being loaded into an ambulance. "That's Alexander Blackwood. He owns half the buildings in this city. You just saved the richest man in the state." Marcus looked at the unconscious man, then at the burning car, then at his own bleeding hands. He'd saved someone important, but he hadn't known that when he'd acted. He'd just seen someone who needed help. Marcus was taken to St. Catherine's Hospital in a separate ambulance. His mother, Julia, met him there, having left work early after receiving the frantic call. She was still in her cleaning uniform from the office building where she worked nights. "Marcus, baby, what were you thinking?" She was hugging him tightly, checking him for injuries, her voice torn between pride and terror. "You could have been killed. There was a man trapped. He needed help." Julia looked at her son. 11 years old, no shoes, hands wrapped in bandages, and somehow he'd become a hero. A doctor examined Marcus thoroughly. Minor cuts, some bruising, but nothing serious. He's incredibly lucky and incredibly brave. Most adults wouldn't have done what he did. While Marcus was being treated, reporters had already descended on the hospital. The story was everywhere. Barefoot boy saves city's richest CEO from burning car. Video footage from bystanders' phones showed Marcus's entire rescue, the moment he broke the window, the desperate pulling, the car exploding seconds after they'd cleared it. In a private wing upstairs, Alexander Blackwood was regaining consciousness. He had a concussion, 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and extensive bruising. His doctor was explaining what had happened when Alexander interrupted. "The boy. Where's the boy who pulled me out?" "Downstairs, being treated for minor injuries. His name is Marcus Washington, 11 years old. I want to see him. Now. Mr. Blackwood, you need rest. Now." When Alexander Blackwood said now, people listened. 20 minutes later, Marcus and his mother were brought to his private room. Alexander was sitting up despite doctors' protests, his left arm in a sling, a bandage across his forehead. He looked at the small boy with bare feet and bandaged hands and felt something crack in his chest. "You saved my life," Alexander said simply. Marcus nodded, suddenly shy in the presence of this intimidating man. "Thank you seems inadequate, but thank you." Julia squeezed Marcus's shoulder. "My son has a good heart." Over the next few days, the city couldn't stop talking about Marcus Washington. Local news ran segments. National media picked up the story. The barefoot hero who'd saved a billionaire. GoFundMe pages appeared, raising money for Marcus's family without their knowledge or permission. Alexander Blackwood watched it all from his hospital bed. His assistant brought him every article, every video, every social media post. The story had captured something people needed. Proof that heroism still existed, that a poor child with nothing could still give everything to save a stranger. But Alexander was troubled by something else. He'd ordered a private investigation into the accident. His head of security, a former FBI agent named Catherine Morris, brought him the preliminary report 3 days after the crash. "Your brakes were tampered with, sir. Someone cut the brake lines partially, not completely, which would have been obvious, but enough that they'd fail under pressure. When you tried to brake at that intersection, nothing happened." Alexander had suspected as much. He'd felt the brake pedal go to the floor, the horrible moment of realizing nothing was stopping him. "Suspects?" "Several. You've made enemies in business. The Thornton merger, the Riverside development, the hostile takeover of Morrison Industries. Any of those could have motivated this. We're investigating." Alexander thought about Marcus, about the randomness that had put that boy on that street at that exact moment. If Marcus had taken a different route, arrived 1 minute earlier or later, Alexander would be dead. Someone had tried to kill him, and an 11-year-old with no shoes had thwarted that plan. "I want to meet with the boy's mother, privately." "Sir, you should focus on recovery." "Set it up." 2 days later, Julia Washington came to the hospital alone. Alexander had requested that Marcus stay with a neighbor. He wanted this conversation without the child present. Julia entered his private room nervously, clearly out of her element in this world of wealth and power. Alexander gestured to the chair beside his bed. "Mrs. Washington, thank you for coming." Julia sat stiffly in the expensive chair, her work-worn hands folded in her lap. Alexander studied her, probably mid-30s, exhausted in a way that came from years of struggle, but with dignity that money couldn't buy. "Your son saved my life," Alexander began. "I've spent the last week trying to figure out how to properly thank him. Money seems insufficient. A reward feels cheap, so I want to propose something different." Julia waited, saying nothing. Alexander appreciated that. She wasn't gushing or eager, just cautious and listening. "I did research on your family. I hope you'll forgive the intrusion, but I needed to understand. You work 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night, stocking shelves during the day. Marcus attends public school, gets straight A's despite missing classes sometimes to help you. You're behind on rent. You can't afford shoes for your son." Julia's face flushed with shame and anger. "If you brought me here to make me feel small..." "No, I brought you here to offer help, real help, not charity." Alexander sat forward despite the pain in his ribs. "I want to establish a trust fund for Marcus's education. Full ride to any school he wants, college included. I want to pay off your debts and set up a modest income so you can quit 1 job, actually be present for your son's childhood." Julia stared at him. "Why?" "Because your son didn't hesitate. He saw someone in danger and acted. No calculation, no thought for himself, just pure instinct to help. That's rare. That's valuable. I want to ensure that kind of goodness isn't crushed by poverty." "This sounds like charity." "It's gratitude. There's a difference." Julia was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want in return? Men like you don't give without expecting something." She wasn't wrong to be suspicious. Alexander respected that. "Nothing. No publicity, no appearances, no strings. Just let your son have a better future than the one poverty would give him. And if I say no, then I respect that decision and never contact you again. But Mrs. Washington, pride is admirable. Denying your son opportunities because of pride is foolish." Julia went home that night and sat at her tiny kitchen table thinking. Marcus was asleep in the bedroom they shared. She'd given him the bed. She slept on a mattress on the floor. Their apartment was 1 room plus a bathroom, in a building that should probably be condemned. She thought about Alexander Blackwood's offer, a trust fund, debt forgiveness. A chance for Marcus to escape the cycle she'd been trapped in since having him at 22, since his father left, since every door she'd tried to open had been locked by poverty. Her pride screamed no. Accept nothing from the rich man. You've survived this long on your own. But when she looked at Marcus sleeping, his bandaged hands resting on the thin blanket, his bare feet, because she couldn't afford shoes, pride felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. The next morning, she called the number Alexander had given her. "I'll accept your help, but I have conditions." They met again, this time in Alexander's lawyer's office. Julia had borrowed a better outfit from a friend, wanting to look less like she lived in poverty, even though everyone in that room knew the truth. "My conditions," Julia stated clearly. "First, this is between you and us. No media, no public announcements. Marcus doesn't become your charity poster child." "Agreed." "Second, the money goes into a trust that only Marcus can access when he's older. I don't touch it. I don't want anyone thinking I exploited my son's heroism." "Reasonable. What else?" "Third, if you ever make Marcus feel like he owes you something, if you ever use this to manipulate him or make him feel inferior, the deal is off and we walk away from every penny." Alexander smiled, the first genuine smile since the accident. "Mrs. Washington, you're negotiating from a position of no power, yet you're dictating terms. I respect that. Do we have a deal?" "We do, but I have one condition of my own." Julia tensed. Here it came, the catch. "I'd like to get to know Marcus, not as his benefactor, not publicly, just as someone interested in the boy who saved his life. Occasional meetings, maybe mentor him a bit, no strings, no obligations. He can refuse any time." Julia studied Alexander's face, looking for manipulation or ulterior motives. She saw something she hadn't expected, genuine interest, maybe even loneliness. A week later, Alexander Blackwood, still recovering but mobile, arrived at Julia's tiny apartment unannounced. She opened the door to find the richest man in the state standing in her decrepit hallway, looking completely out of place in his $1,000 suit. "Mr. Blackwood, this is unexpected. I should have called. I apologize. I was in the neighborhood." He stopped, realizing how ridiculous that sounded. He was never in this neighborhood. "I wanted to see Marcus, if that's all right." Marcus appeared behind his mother, eyes wide. The famous CEO was at their door, in their building, requesting to see him. "It's okay, Mama. He can come in." The apartment was immaculate despite its poverty. Julia had cleaned obsessively before agreeing to this arrangement, not wanting to give anyone reason to judge her housekeeping, even if they could judge her income. Alexander entered, immediately aware of how small the space was, how worn everything looked, how this family of two lived in less space than his walk-in closet. Marcus showed Alexander his room, really just a corner with a bed and some books stacked against the wall. "This is where I study. The library is better because it's quiet, but sometimes it closes before I'm done with homework." Alexander picked up one of the books. Advanced Mathematics, 3 grade levels above where Marcus should be. "You like math?" "I like how it makes sense. There's always a right answer, not like real life." They talked for an hour. Alexander asked about school, about Marcus's interests, about what he wanted to be when he grew up. "A doctor, I think, so I can help people who can't afford help." The simplicity and selflessness of that answer hit Alexander hard. Before leaving, Alexander noticed Marcus's bare feet again. "Your shoes haven't arrived yet?" "What shoes?" Marcus looked confused. Alexander glanced at Julia, who shook her head slightly. She hadn't told Marcus about the trust fund or any arrangements. She was protecting him from expectations and disappointment if things fell through. "I'll be back," Alexander said. 2 days later, boxes arrived. Shoes in multiple sizes and styles, clothes, school supplies, a laptop, books. Julia almost sent it all back, but Marcus's face stopped her. Over the following months, Alexander Blackwood did something he'd never done before. He became present in someone's life without agenda. He visited Marcus weekly, taking the boy to museums, bookstores, his office building. He showed Marcus how business worked, explained concepts like investment and compound interest, taught him that wealth was a tool, not an identity. Marcus soaked it all in like a sponge, but he also taught Alexander things. About resilience, about gratitude, about finding joy in small things. About how the homeless man on the corner had a name, Johnny, and knew all about baseball. About how the librarian Mrs. Chen saved books she thought Marcus would like. About community in poverty that didn't exist in Alexander's penthouse world. Julia watched this relationship develop with mixed feelings. Marcus was thriving. His grades improved even more. His confidence grew. He talked about possibilities she'd never dared let him dream about. But she worried about what would happen when Alexander got bored, when the novelty wore off, when Marcus became just another obligation in a busy life. Alexander's business associates noticed the change in him. He left the office at reasonable hours. He smiled more. He asked personal questions about employees' lives instead of just demanding productivity. His assistant commented, "Whatever that kid did to you, it's working. You're almost human now." The investigation into the brake tampering had stalled. Catherine Morris had several suspects, but no concrete proof. Alexander almost didn't care anymore. He was alive, and being alive had become interesting again in ways it hadn't been for years. 6 months after the accident, Alexander invited Marcus and Julia to his penthouse for the first time. Julia had resisted, not wanting Marcus to see such wealth, to compare it to their poverty. But Marcus had asked, and she couldn't deny him. The penthouse was everything she'd feared. Opulent, enormous, dripping with wealth that could feed their neighborhood for years. But Marcus didn't seem overwhelmed by the luxury. He was more interested in the view, in the books in Alexander's study, in the photos of people he asked about. "Who's this?" Marcus pointed to a photo of a young woman. Alexander's expression shifted, became guarded. "My daughter, Claire. She died 5 years ago." The room went silent. Alexander had never mentioned having a daughter, having lost a daughter. Julia felt like they'd stumbled into private grief they had no right to witness. But Marcus, with the directness of children, asked, "What happened?" Alexander sat down heavily. He'd never talked about this, not to anyone beyond necessary business conversations. But something about Marcus's honest face made him want to. She was 16, brilliant, kind, impulsive. She volunteered at a homeless shelter downtown despite my concerns about safety. One night there was a fire. She could have gotten out easily, but she went back for an elderly woman who was trapped. They both died in the collapse. Marcus absorbed this, then said quietly, "She sounds like a hero." She was. But I was angry at her for years. Angry that she'd chosen to risk her life for a stranger. Angry that she'd left me. I couldn't understand why she'd done it. Alexander looked at Marcus directly. "Until I saw you break that window." Understanding dawned. This wasn't random mentorship or gratitude. Alexander saw his daughter in Marcus, the same instinct to help, the same courage, the same inability to stand by when action was needed. "You remind me that Claire's choice, while it cost her life, was who she was. She couldn't have lived with herself if she'd walked away, just like you couldn't walk away from that burning car." Julia felt tears on her cheeks. This wasn't charity. This was a father trying to honor his lost daughter by helping a boy who embodied everything she'd been. "I should have told you earlier," Alexander admitted, "but I didn't want you to feel like you were substitutes or replacements. You're not. You're your own people. But helping Marcus, watching him grow, it helps me feel connected to Claire's spirit." Marcus walked over and without a word hugged Alexander. The billionaire CEO, who hadn't been hugged with genuine affection in years, broke down crying. 3 people in a penthouse, brought together by tragedy and heroism, forming something that looked like family. Life fell into a new normal. Julia quit her night job, finally able to be home with Marcus in the evenings. They moved to a better apartment. Nothing luxurious, but safe, clean, with Marcus having his own bedroom. Marcus attended a better school, one where teachers recognized his potential instead of just warehousing students. Alexander's business thrived. The near-death experience had refocused him, made him remember why he'd built his empire, not for wealth itself, but for the ability to create, to solve problems, to make impact. He started a foundation focused on education for underprivileged children, quietly funded by his personal wealth. Marcus was the inspiration but not the face. Julia's conditions were honored. Then Catherine Morris appeared at Alexander's office with a grim expression. "We have a problem. The person who tampered with your brakes, they've made contact." She showed him a letter delivered to his office that morning. Simple typed text. "You should have died in that car. Next time, I'll make sure of it. And I'll make sure that boy doesn't interfere." The mention of Marcus changed everything. Threatening Alexander was one thing, but threatening a child. Alexander's expression hardened. "Find them. Whatever resources you need, whatever it costs. Find them now." Catherine had already assembled a team. "We've narrowed suspects to 3 people with motive, means, and opportunity, all connected to your business dealings. But proving who sent this letter is different from proving who tampered with the brakes." "What about Marcus? Is he safe?" "We've assigned discreet security. He won't notice, but he's protected." That night, Alexander called Julia. He'd promised transparency, no secrets. "There's been a threat against Marcus." Julia's panic was immediate and visceral. What kind of threat? Alexander explained everything, the original brake tampering, the investigation, the new letter. I've arranged security, the best in the business. Marcus is safer now than he was before the threat. This is because of you, because he saved you. Julia's voice was sharp with fear-turned anger. Yes, and I'm sorry. But Julia, people who make threats like this, they don't follow through on children. It's meant to intimidate me, not actual intent. You don't know that. You're right, I don't, which is why I won't let anything happen to him, I promise you. Catherine Morris's team worked with police to track the letter. DNA evidence led them to David Morrison, the former CEO of Morrison Industries, before Alexander's hostile takeover. Morrison had lost everything, his company, his wealth, his reputation. The brake tampering and subsequent threats were his revenge. Morrison was arrested trying to flee the country. Evidence in his home confirmed everything, detailed plans of Alexander's schedule, the tools used to tamper with the brakes, drafts of threatening letters. The threat was over. Marcus never knew how close danger had been. Alexander and Julia decided together to keep it that way, let him stay innocent a while longer. The security detail remained, invisible but present. 3 years passed. Marcus was 14 now, thriving in school, already taking high school courses despite being in middle school. His dreams had expanded from doctor to doctor plus researcher plus professor. He wanted to do everything, help everyone. Julia had gone back to school herself, getting certification as a medical assistant. Alexander's foundation had given her a scholarship, though she didn't know it came from him specifically. The pride on her face when she graduated was worth more to Alexander than any business achievement. He attended her graduation, sitting in the back row, watching Julia walk across that stage with her head high. Marcus sat in the front, cheering louder than anyone. Afterward, Julia found Alexander in the crowd. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For not making me feel small. For helping without taking away my dignity. For being there for my son when his own father wasn't." "Julia, you did all of this. I just removed some obstacles. Your strength, your work, your dedication, that's what got you here." They'd become friends over these years, these two people from completely different worlds, united by the boy who'd saved one and raised the other. Marcus ran up, diploma in hand, to show Alexander. At 14, he was taller now, filling out, losing the skinny childhood appearance, but not the essential kindness in his eyes. "Mom did it. I knew she would." His pride in his mother's achievement was pure and beautiful. Alexander felt something he thought he'd lost forever, a sense of family, of belonging, of purpose beyond profit margins. 5 years after the accident, Alexander Blackwood stood in an auditorium at Marcus Washington's high school graduation. Marcus was 17, graduating 2 years early, valedictorian, with full scholarships to 6 different universities. He'd chosen to stay local, attend the state university where he could remain close to his mother and continue their work in the community. Marcus's valedictorian speech began with a story. 5 years ago, I broke a window. I was an 11-year-old kid with no shoes, and I saw someone who needed help. I didn't think about it. I just acted. That decision changed my life in ways I never imagined. He told the story of saving Alexander, of the relationship that developed, of the doors that had opened. But then he said something that made Alexander's throat tight. "But the real hero of my story isn't me. It's my mom, who worked 2 jobs to keep me fed and clothed. It's Mr. Blackwood, who saw potential in a poor kid and invested in it without asking anything in return. It's every teacher who stayed late to help me, every librarian who saved books for me, every neighbor who looked out for us when times were hard." Marcus looked directly at Alexander. People think heroism is one big dramatic moment, but real heroism is showing up every day, doing the right thing even when it's hard, lifting others up when you could easily walk past. That's what the people in my life taught me. The crowd stood, applauding. Alexander met Julia's eyes across the room. She was crying, proud and overwhelmed. They'd done it. Together, they'd given this remarkable boy a chance to become who he was meant to be. After the ceremony, the three of them stood together outside the auditorium. "So, college in the fall," Alexander said. "Excited?" "Terrified," Marcus admitted, "but ready. And Mr. Blackwood, thank you for everything." "Marcus, I'm the one who should be thanking you. You didn't just save my life that day. You saved me from a life that had stopped meaning anything. You reminded me what matters." They parted ways that evening. Julia and Marcus heading to a celebration with friends, Alexander returning to his penthouse. But it wasn't goodbye. They'd see each other next week for their regular dinner, the tradition they'd maintained for 5 years. As Alexander drove home, he passed the intersection where it had all begun. The streetlight had been repaired, the sidewalk rebuilt. No sign remained of the accident that had changed all their lives, but the impact remained. A boy with no shoes had broken a window and saved a life. In doing so, he'd saved 3 lives: the man in the car, the mother who'd been drowning in poverty and despair, and his own. Because heroism, Alexander had learned, isn't just about the moment of action. It's about what you do with the opportunity that action creates. It's about being worthy of the second chance that courage gives you. Marcus Washington had given him that chance, and Alexander Blackwood had finally learned how to be worthy of it.